The UFO community has been enlightened this week, starting with Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who's just dropped an absolutely insane bombshell with regards to Russian contacts. It is all going on in the UAP space at this current time, as we've got Representative Anna Paulina Luna allegedly prepared, or spoken to already, an envoy to President Putin with regards to the UAP topic and about what Russia knows about UAPs, which is something that she did promise. And we've also got some very interesting updates from the man, the myth, the legend, Ross Coulthart himself, talking about the Age of Disclosure, which apparently is an upcoming documentary. We've got information from Luella Zondo. We've got all sorts of stuff. So we're going to kind of get started with Ross Coulthart. So Ross Coulthart has updated, stating that he is going to be doing an update on the Skywatcher stuff. Okay, and he's got apparently a brand new video coming out very soon, talking about summoning UFOs with psionics and a quote-unquote, or the dog whistle. Which is very interesting because that's something that obviously Ross has been kind of in the mix with recently. He's apparently doing a study on psionics and it's currently being peer reviewed, and apparently there is no cover up underway. This is what Ross had to state with regards to all of this latest news.
I can tell you, I don't think I'm giving anything away here. I can tell you that there is going to be a video coming out, I hope relatively soon, from our friends at Skywatcher. That's the Jake Barber, Alex Clokus privately funded group that are investigating UAP phenomena and trying to use psionic summoning and the dog whistle to bring UAP objects, craft close in so that they can be videoed, photographed and studied. They are doing a study on psionics. They've spoken publicly about this in their previous videos. I think they've done interviews where they've talked about the fact that they are going to be studying telepathy and psionics. And I'm really excited. I'm aware of some of the work that they've been doing, and I'm really excited. I'm told they are in the peer review process at the moment, and it's taking a lot longer than expected. I am assured there is no cover-up underway, that they are going to be fully open and transparent, and I'm looking forward at some stage to interviewing either Alex or Jake or somebody from Skywatcher about it. But they are tied up in a very rigorous peer review process that is part of their own internal vetting and checking procedures. But at some stage, very, very soon, quite exciting work that I'm aware of that they've been doing with telepathy will be being made public. Watch this space.
I'm highly intrigued about this because this is always something that I've heard in the background and I've been like, what? Like, psionics, summoning UFOs. I mean, people swear by it. They say that this is, absolutely what's going to be happening. I don't know. The whole UFO topic to a lot of people is already incredibly far-fetched, but when you throw in this idea of telepathy kind of summoning UFOs and commanding them, who am I to be like ignorant enough to say that that's not a thing? But to a lot of people they'll be like, all right, okay. But apparently as well, there is a new NHI documentary coming out called The Age of Disclosure, and Ross also shares a little bit of information with regards to that.
Whisper that the Age of Disclosure documentary is going to be coming out soon, possibly on a limited cinema release and more broadly possibly on Prime Amazon.
So that's obviously very, very exciting news with regards to that. And it's, this is kind of a little snippet allegedly from this kind of documentary.
The American people are ready to receive the truth.
Humanity is not the only intelligence in the universe.
Humanity is not the only intelligent species.
We are absolutely not alone.
Non-human intelligence exists.
UAPs are real, they're here, and they're not human. I spent 25 years as a senior official with the CIA.
I've worked on highly classified UAP programs.
28 years as an astrophysicist.
I served as the 4th Director of National Intelligence.
Director of Aviation Security in the National Security Council.
A one-star admiral after 32 years of service.
People that come forward with this, I feel like they've taken their life in their own hands.
I was recruited to a highly sensitive government program that investigated unidentified aerial phenomenon.
For over 16 years, on behalf of the U.S. government, I worked as a senior intelligence official on the unidentified aerial phenomenon topic.
We learned that the U.S. government was involved in a long-running secret war with other nations to collect and reverse engineer vehicles not made by humans.
I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings.
Look at this thing. It's rotating. There's a whole fleet of them.
The first country that cracks the code on this technology will be the leader for years to come.
China has established its own version of a UAP task force.
You think for a second that they wouldn't consider using it to achieve their ends of domination?
This is similar to the Manhattan Project. This is the atomic weapon on steroids.
This is so secret, very, very few people in our entire government have been allowed access to it.
Even presidents have been operating on a need-to-know basis, but that begins to ramp out of control.
It's not acceptable to have secret parts of government that no one ever sees.
You better be careful about a government that doesn't trust its people, because there's no telling what they'll pull on you.
This is the biggest discovery in human history.
You had information being locked away that could change the trajectory for a species.
It has so many beneficial impacts, including clean energy.
We should have disclosure today. We should have disclosure tomorrow. The time has come.
I'm not gonna lie, that is one of the coldest trailers I think I've ever seen to a documentary like that, right? That was cold. Like, I literally got goose pimples watching that, and it was just really cool. But it also kind of sheds a bit of light into why this government topic is so secretive. Obviously, everyone kind of talks about, well, why the secrecy? What's the need for secrecy? It's essentially because everyone wants to be the first to it. It's like the moon race all over again. They all want to be the first person there.
What else you want to know?
Coming very, very soon, and apparently it might be coming sooner than we have anticipated, according to Ross Coulthart. Very, very exciting stuff. On top of that, Ross Coulthart has also confirmed that he's got an upcoming interview with Tim Alberino. So, you know, he's confirmed that this interview will be taking place, which is a very exciting interview indeed, and I'll leave it to Ross to explain why.
Would you consider interviewing ufologist Timothy Alberino, who investigated similar suspicious black ops militia abducting humans with alien tech down in Peru? Are you familiar with this case? Keep up the good work.
Actually, I have exchanged messages with Tim Alberino, and he is on my list. As we all say, too much reality check is barely enough, and frankly, I just can't keep up with the volume of people that are available to be interviewed and the breadth and magnitude of the stories that we're trying to cover here. It's really exciting, actually. I'm very much enjoying. I thought where I'm living at the moment, I'd be moving into a quiet, gentle, peaceful retirement in the Southern Highlands south of Sydney, maybe doing the odd UFO book and maybe doing the odd interview. It's just unbelievable, the volume of messages and responses that we're getting from people. It's very, very gratifying. And Tim's one of them. He did some great work. I've watched a few of his shows where he actually went down and investigated claims, particularly claims about the abduction or the attempted abduction of, I think, a 15-year-old teenage girl from a tribal community in Brazil, Peru, can't remember which place it was. But she told this harrowing story of this being on some kind of levitating platform coming towards her up a slope, grabbing her and trying to abduct her. Quite a frightening story. And if you take this into the context of the Chubba Chubbas, which we've also spoken about with Ronnie Vernay, Brazilian friend, we know that there are claims in tribal communities in both Brazil and Peru of often unfriendly beings, often using highly advanced technology that try and abduct locals, particularly young women. So yeah, Tim Alberino has investigated that, and thank you for reminding me. Actually, we should get Tim on. That's a great idea. I'm also in touch with Ronnie Vernay, who's doing another trip very soon to northern Brazil, and we're hoping to bring you a story on that at some stage as well. So
obviously, you know, Ross Coulthart again keeping his finger on the pulse when it comes to this kinds of stuff. Again, this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, do you know what? Like, Ross is kind of worth his weight in gold a little bit here, because he is someone who is significant influence within this space, who is able to actually pull the strings to make these conversations happen, unlike others who may not have that kind of ability. So, you know, in that sense, we are very fortunate to have Ross Coulthart serving in this kind of capacity. Now, interestingly, obviously, about a month ago, you may remember, Representative Anna Paulina Luna did an interview where she stated that she is going to be sitting down with representatives from Russia to talk about what they know about UAPs, about their task force and all the rest of it, because obviously we know that George Knapp under oath testified in front of Congress stating that he smuggled out UAP documents. He stated that on Joe Rogan. He reinforced it under oath in front of Congress, and you know, it basically spurred on Congress to want to sit down with representatives from Russia to talk about what they know. Fortunately, Paulina Luna's pulled it out of the bag, and apparently she's had a meeting with, I'm going to butcher this, Kirill Dmitriev. I don't know why I went in a bit of a Russian accent to say that out loud, but this is what she had to say with regards to that conversation.
What is the context for the Russia program? What can we expect about that? Obviously, when you hear Russia, people's eyes light up.
Yeah, so there's over 300 pages that will be submitted into the congressional record, of which people will be able to go through themselves. And really my main question for Mr. Knapp is, you know, and of course every member of Congress wants to know, how do you prove that this isn't actual disinformation that was handed over to American journalists or smuggled out of Russia by the KGB? And I think the real answer to that, in my opinion, is that we're not the only country that's actually looked into this. We actually have multiple parliaments that have announced hearings similar to what we're doing here in Washington, D.C., ranging from Mexico to Brazil to other countries as well, that are looking into launching their own task force. And so, to my knowledge, the Russian government did have something similar. I can tell you, Cuomo, that I actually met with the Russian government recently and asked them point blank if they had any information to share on this topic. And on that same front, we are looking forward to actually doing a bipartisan meeting with the Russian parliament here pretty soon. So we're trying to get that on the books.
Obviously, very exciting stuff. And we all know that it's not just the, you know, Americans that have got a UAP task force or are interested in this kind of disclosure, like the Representative Luna said there. Brazil, Mexico are two places. Russia's clearly got one. We know that China's got one. I'm pretty sure the UK's got one. Parts of Europe, France, Germany, I believe I've heard, Belgium have got all, like, you know, they may not have task forces per se, but they might have some kind of vested interest in the topic. I'm very, very intrigued and eager to see what comes off the back of this. You know, off the back of all of this, the Age of Disclosure documentary I'm excited about, the interviews with Ross Coulthart I'm excited about, and the information that Representative Luna delivers I am excited about. Moving on from that, we've got a video talking about the UFO whistleblower who was allegedly dead-dropped the Hellfire missile video at the same time as Representative Burleson, but also has some very deep understanding with regards to UAP topics. So this is kind of crazy. The man that allegedly dead-dropped the Hellfire UAP missile video that was presented in front of Congress by Eric Burleson has just come forward over on Reddit and has basically done a bit of a Q&A, which is highly, highly interesting. Now, we're going to get into that in just a moment. Before we do, I want to encourage you guys to drop a like on this video and subscribe if you have not already. I'm just doing the whole YouTube thing, so just let me be. In case you haven't seen it already, this was the video that was dropped by Congress during the September 2025 congressional hearing. I'm sure you're all very well versed in it, but in case you haven't seen it. So this was believed to be a Hellfire missile which came into contact with this UAP, and the UAP just kind of shrugged it off. Now, obviously we don't know of anything that is able to just shrug it off. Obviously this shows the flight paths and the kind of paths in which everything took, right? So that's why there's so many squiggly lines all over the place. But a Hellfire missile is basically designed to destroy absolutely anything within its path. So this, theoretically, should have been impossible. Many people have speculated that it was a balloon. Many have speculated that it was, well, all sorts. And the UAP is on the list of things that people believe that it was. But this was not captured by Representative Eric Burleson. No, no, no. In fact, this was dead dropped to Eric Burleson to present to Congress. Now, Eric Burleson does admit that the video has not been thoroughly vetted as of right now, and it is going through the processes of being thoroughly vetted, though it has gone through the medium of UAP whistleblowers like David Grush, for example, to say, hey, is this worth me sharing? Clearly it was, because they ended up sharing it. So let's talk about this post that's just suddenly come up on Reddit. So it comes from someone called Whistling Mike, right? And he is known as Michael, the UAP whistleblower. I'm Michael, a first-hand UAP witness with direct engagement with Congressional Committee and Arrow. I'll be here today at 1 PST, 4 EST, to answer questions, ask me anything. So within the order of events, in the early 2000s, I had a UAP experience. The event was marked as the beginning of a decade-long effort to build a radar system capable of tracking UAPs and to replicate aspects of their technology. We attempted to directly sell our technology portfolio to the US government and the military instead of interest that led to investigations by multiple agencies, including AFOSI and NCIS and Cyber Command. Eventually, it culminated in an in-person meeting with the FBI office and both FBI and DOJ representatives, Department of Justice. I was fully cleared of any wrongdoing. Because of the mistreatment that we faced from the intelligence community, I reached out to the SSCI, where their interest focused solely on one part of our story, the UAP connection. In early 2023, our business was asked to brief both SSCI and Arrow. Over the past 2 years, we've made repeated trips to Washington, D.C., conducting briefings inside basically the SCIF with both staff and sitting senators. Our goal is to educate them on the technology and pursue the deal that we've been dangled in front of us like a carrot. Arrow maintained its constant contact during this period and provided secure DoD drop boxes for reporting all foreign adversary approaches. I was personally asked by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, who of course was the chair of Arrow for a period of time, he's not long there anymore, to work with OSI to help bring down individuals from China who made a financial offer for our technology. As patriots, we refused to sell out American military advantage to China. In retaliation, we received death threats and traced back to Chinese sources. When the deal ultimately fell through, everyone on our side, including the US government, funding experts working with us, was stunned. They had presented SSCI with a legitimate workable plan to make an agreement to succeed for everyone's satisfaction. Around that time, Tim Phillips emerged publicly on the podcast scene while still in DRP and collecting a government paycheck. The former acting director of Arrow accused me of attempting to extort Arrow for the US government, and he also claimed the SSCI staff told him that I was unsafe to be around, implying that I was mentally unstable. These statements are false and provably so. I have receipts. I've been publicly challenged Tim Phillips to a debate regarding these remarks, and he has been informed of the challenge for weeks, and his deadline to respond is this Friday. Throughout the process, I was repeatedly told that I was protected under the Whistleblower Protection Act until suddenly I was informed that I was not. That reversal effectively stripped away any protection and allowed individuals like Tim Phillips to make baseless statements without consequences. Despite all of this, I continue working with the US government employees to find an elected official willing to push our effort through. I still want to make the US military stronger, and the US government still wants what we've built. When the government determined our technology should fall under the Intervention Secrecy Act, it was only confirmed that we had developed something that they could not, even with $1 trillion budget. Today, I move forward with the support and attorney Ivan Hanel, who is well known in this field. Ivan has verified that I am indeed the Michael, here to answer your questions today. I want to thank Ivan for his help, including recovering physical material from the SCIF after Tim Phillips sabotaged the deal. I have put verification on my Twitter handle, Whistling Mike. I'm going to call it a day on the AMA after 2 hours. I thought there were some good questions, and I'm glad to come back later in time if you'll have me. So this is the AMA. Ask me anything. People obviously ask the questions, and then, are you the gentleman with the 4K video of the UAP? If so, would you release it? Yes, all the evidence like the 4K video is going to be put in a folder. The elected member who signs off on the funding would get access to that folder, even if they aren't on a big committee like intelligence. Then they would release to beat the system, or at least know the truth about what is being hidden at. So it's not up to me. It's a question of why all these UAP cowboys won't sign off on the funding for this answer. And then we move down again. I don't really get the point with America's military advantage. If NHI UAPs are a threat, it has to be against all humanity, not just the United States. Shouldn't technology able to track them be licensed to any country if to defend humanity? And then they respond, the order of whose has the most powerful military runs the world. Any technology that can detect NHI UAP can also detect trillion-dollar stealth airplanes and bombers, and the US will never allow that technology to see the light of day. Again, he responds to a lot more. Do you think it's working entirely with open source information and publicly available materials? You could independently be discovered or invented what you have developed. Possible, but not likely. I think you have to have a peek at the answer book to go about reverse engineering, not just from the ground up. So those are kind of some of the key answers. He doesn't really answer loads of questions, but if you want to take a look at the full thread, you can take a look at it on the r/UFOs page. But someone also responded to this and kind of reposted it. Witness Michael received the Hellfire video dead drop with longer duration than Burleson, where at the end of the video, at the UAP crashes, in his words, my view goes to the top cover camera view and it crashes, either broke apart when it hit the water or right before, hard to tell, but it goes down. So I find this highly interesting that the man that allegedly dead dropped the UAP video of the Hellfire missile to Eric Burleson has gone public, answering questions. I highly doubt this will be the last time that we hear or see anything of this. I wouldn't be surprised if this person ended up on the Weaponized podcast with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, or on Reality Check with Ross Coulthart, or just an outlet like that. Joe Rogan as well, he seems to have a lot of UAP whistleblowers involved. Maybe even having a conversation in the skiff with Representative Luna, Burleson, Burchett, and all the rest of it. What do you guys make of this? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. While you're down there, jump scare the hell out of that like button and subscribe. This also kind of adds into the narrative of why this person would want to go public with this information. Clearly, they've got a bit of an axe to grind with regards to their technology kind of being used as a dangling carrot in the contracts and stuff. Moving on from that, we've got Ross Coulthart, who basically has interviewed a brand new UFO whistleblower that's blown the lid on absolutely everything UAP. Ross Coulthart has just delivered yet another UAP whistleblower, this time a nuclear security guard who detailed some anomalous events at Bases Area 2. Now, this is arguably one of the biggest testimonies that we've had in recent times with regards to Ross Coulthart, because there is a hell of a lot that gets dived into, or dove into, whatever the tense is for that one. Before we get into it, be sure to drop a like and subscribe, and I'll be keeping you up to date as best I can on the UAP topic. But let's talk about this. So, like I said, right, this is quite significant because down here on the little captions or chapters part, it's quite a big deal because there's a lot that they speak about. There's obviously nuclear security, what does that entail? But the key points that we are keen on here is the anomalous bright light, which of course is the first encounter, a disc crash, 2 lights, the first humanoid shadow being, the second humanoid shadow being, and not only that, but the third humanoid being. And then they talk about UAP in bunkers and the FBI response. So not only here are we talking about a UAP, but we're also talking about humanoid figures. Now, obviously, I'm not going to play the entire interview, but be sure to go over to News Nation and you can check out this episode for yourself because it's highly, highly interesting. So, first of all, we're obviously going to talk about the situation in its entirety. So, long story short, right, he catches wind of this, bright light. And then this is what happens afterwards. Take a little listen to this.
It was a little disturbing for me because somehow I completely forgot about this incident, and I don't know how I could have forgotten because it was so obvious. It was right over my head. And when we talked, you got in contact with Robert Hastings, who I had originally talked to shortly after I had separated. So I can't explain how I could have forgotten about this, but as soon as you showed me what I had told Mr. Hastings, I remembered the incident. I was on the alert fire team, which was stationed at the alternate security control center, and we were outside. A few of the guys smoked, so we were outside with them, kind of joking and just hanging out. One of the other patrols was there, so it was a total of 6 people outside. And I remember that the guy that I'm facing, we're talking, joking about something, and he kind of looks up above my head and his eyes just go wide. And as soon as that happens, I kind of turn my head to look over my shoulder. And as I'm turning my head, I see this reddish glow that kind of approaches on the ground. And I crank my head up just in time to spot this. I hate to say it, but it was a classic flying disc-shaped object. I don't think that it was physically on fire. It was almost like this almost like magma type glow was wrapped around the front of it, and that was what was illuminating the ground underneath it. But it was flying maybe 200 to 300 feet above our heads, very low, and as it approached and came over us, it actually deadened sound wherever it moved. Like the natural sounds of like the building right next to us, the desert, other patrols in the distance, they got very faint, almost like when you stick your head underwater. And as soon
Is there any noise from the object at all? Do you hear anything like a propeller or a jet or a turbine?
Nothing like that. A little bit of a hum, but I don't know if it was the object creating the hum or maybe its interaction with the atmosphere.
Now, let's not beat around the bush here. This is a craft, a solid physical craft of some kind, breaching the airspace over what is probably one of the most sensitive facilities in the United States, if not the world. This is where thermonuclear weapons are stored. Describe what happens.
So the object came right overhead, and you could tell it was losing altitude because it was dipping down lower as it came and passed over us. As soon as it was clear of us, that's when sound returned and you could hear everything normal. We immediately got on the radios. By the time we got the first radio call out, the object had cleared the perimeter fence line, and it seemed to go behind this area that we call the bluffs, which is what kind of blocked us from view from the rest of the desert. And once it went down behind the bluffs, there was a massive flash of like orangish reddish light, and it was so big that all of us kind of braced ourselves because we honestly thought whatever this thing is, it's just crashed, and like it's such a huge explosion, we're gonna get knocked off our feet.
How big was the object?
I'm a little hesitant because at nighttime and you don't have a good reference, I estimated it was 200 to 300 feet above our heads. If that estimate is right, and I'm fairly confident that I'm right about that, I would say it's about 45 to 50 feet across. So it was a good size object.
I mean, that's a significantly large object that is literally flying overhead, allegedly distorting audio, like literal physical audio from the planet, and then crashing. So obviously that's with regards to the crash itself. He goes on to talk about some other light anomalies that take place. But what's really caught my attention especially is these humanoid figures or shadows. Now, this is weird because obviously we are aware of the grey aliens and, you know, reptilian lizards and all the rest of it, right? But this is quite significant. So let's have a little listen to the description of this, because this is one of 3 humanoid shadowy things that were allegedly seen.
Where things start getting very interesting. let's talk about the shadow beings.
So there's the main incident that I know you want to discuss, but there was a history of people spotting these shadowy figures. We spotted one early on to when I was first out there. I actually shone a spotlight on it because we thought it was our flight chief watching us carry out an exercise. And I shone a spotlight on it to identify him. And when I did, it just disappeared as soon as the light hit him. And there was 16 of us that saw that happen.
How do you know it was there?
So that specific time, we were carrying out an assault and recapture exercise at the maintenance plants where they would do maintenance on the weapons. And our flight chief usually would go out into the desert and kind of get on a bit of high ground so he could oversee everything and see how we were handling the situation. He called exercise terminate. And then once he did, we basically fell into formation in front of the maintenance plants. And right in front of us is a row of 4 buildings that were used way back in the day. When I was there, they were only used for storage. And one of the buildings on the far right used to be an old chow hall. And there was a ladder that you could take to climb up on top of it. So as we're sitting there waiting, we spot this figure pacing back and forth on the top of the old chow hall. And we
these are half, like a 44-gallon drum. They're like half of a 44-gallon drum, aren't they? They're what do you describe those buildings? I've forgotten what you call them, but essentially it's a curved building, isn't it?
The maintenance plants, I forget what that design is called. Yeah, the maintenance plants and then the bunkers these were just sort of normal, small buildings.
So they were flat roofed?
Yeah, they were flat roofed.
Okay. And what do you see? Where is this figure standing?
So this figure would have been, from where I was standing, a good 40 meters away, which is relatively close. And it's pacing back and forth on the top of the roof at the front.
And how do you see it? Because you told me earlier that you had to shine a light on it. So this is in darkness. How do you know it was there? What did you actually see?
So it was solid black figure, and you could see it very clearly because the entire perimeter is lit up. And when the clouds are low, it throws that light up, and you can see it silhouetted up against that light. It was not hazy. It was very clearly seen. Humanoid. We assumed it was our flight chief. We were so confident it was our flight chief that we started calling to him.
Clothed?
Can't tell any details like that. It was pure black, and we couldn't tell any details like that.
Height?
I would have estimated, if that was a real person, and because I had carried out so many operations right there in that area, I know it very well, I would have estimated to be about 6 feet.
Right. So it's standard.
I'm very confident in that.
Tall male human height. Mm-hmm. Did it look like it had the build of a male or a female?
Impossible to tell, but we assumed it was our flight chief. Like there was no, because it kind of looked like him a bit, like he was a bit lankier. There was nothing, like we didn't see it and thought it was anything strange.
So you shone a light on it and it disappeared. How many people saw that shadowy object?
It was 16 of us. 16 of us, because we were all sitting there and we were calling to the figure, thinking it was our flight chief. And then when it wasn't responding, I took a spotlight from one of the other members, and then I turned it on, and as I cranked it up to the building, as soon as the light hit the legs, that's when it just disappeared.
And when you say it disappeared, it literally physically disappeared?
Mm-hmm. It was there one moment, gone the next.
Did you go and have a look at the top of the building to see if there was any heat source or any marks on the top of the building?
So we went and looked. Nothing. Not. There's a bit of gravel on top of that roof, and there was no indication that like somebody had been up there recently or anything.
Could it have been, I don't know, some kind of illusion? Could it have been a bird that for some reason looked like the shape of a human?
So No, it couldn't have been something natural that was projecting the shape of a human because it was too clear. We were all extremely convinced initially that this was our flight chief, a physical person. It couldn't have been a trick of the light, nothing like that. It was way too solid a figure, and there was nothing reflective around there or anything.
So that was the first of the shadow beings incidents that you...
So I'm going to stop it right there, obviously, because, you know, it's a very compelling testimony that is taking place here. And obviously the details are quite, you know, they're there. And like I said before, this is one of 3 alleged beings that were captured or witnessed, right? So the other 2, I'll just kind of quickly, briefly run over it. So the second incident was in 2006, and so 2 shadowy figures were detected inside the facility via thermals, reacting intelligently to evade capture. And they disappeared within seconds, leaving scuff marks and residual heat. So this is obviously a lot more compelling than the first time that they witnessed these beings, because there was a little bit more to work with. And then third incident, there was allegedly a 7 to 8 foot tall figure which ran about 30 foot per second between buildings, too fast for a human, and was not pursued as it was outside of the perimeter. 30 feet per second. Running at 30 feet per second. That is absolutely friggin' insane. Like, that literally puts Usain Bolt to shame. And then there was a bunker incident as well that took place. So something inside a secure, quote, Black World bunker off limits to Shelton's team violently struck a 2-ton door after he checked a vent, indicating an unauthorized presence. And then there was animal mutilations as well from 2007 through to 2008. So 3 donkey carcasses were found with precise organ removal, eyes, tongues and stomachs, with no blood, ruling out animal predation. So obviously no predators about, okay? And Shelton personally witnessed one of the and saw photos of another. There was also security and reporting issues, so incidents were often not thoroughly investigated or reported due to a culture of stigma and a fear of ridicule, risking the PRP status of career damage. Shelton also noted a lack of significant response from his leadership, with some incidents dismissed, for example, his colonel's response. Only major incidents require written statements, allegedly. And he believes this creates a security vulnerability, as adversaries could exploit the reluctance to report anomalous phenomena. Now, the FBI apparently were involved a little bit, so Shelton reported these incidents to the FBI, expressed concern about security vulnerabilities. He suspects that the Department of Defense and Department of Energy may know more about this phenomena but fail to act, possibly because they don't perceive them as potential threats. Obviously, it's a very, very interesting testimony. And what I like about this is the fact that we've not just got a testimony about a UAP, you know, like what we've had over Eglin Air Force Base and other nuclear facilities, but there was some shadowy things, right, captured, ranging from between 6 and 8 foot, and evading capture and running at allegedly 30 feet per second. Then we've got Lou Elizondo getting called out, and also this recent whistleblower that I spoke about with regards to the Hellfire missile video getting called out. There's quite a few things to dive into today for the UFO topic. So we've got people kind of talking out against Michael the whistleblower, including Tim Phillips, who is a former Arrow director, of course. We've got some stuff about Lou Elizondo, of course, the infamous whistleblower who came out last year. And we've also got an apparent UFO crash that took place over Area 51, which caused the airspace to completely shut down. We're going to be talking about all of it because is it UFO or is it not? Well, we'll dive into that in just a moment. So before we get into it, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to be kept up to date with everything UFO. Now, the first thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is, of course, the fact that we've got an alleged UAP that has crashed over area, or around the Area 51 kind of region, which is causing everyone to obviously buzz and be like, oh my god, it's a UFO. Well, is it? This is the news that have been delivering the story so far.
The investigation into a, quote, incident involving a military aircraft near Area 51 is intensifying after the Air Force discovered, quote, tampering in materials in the desert. The agency now investigators first to tell you late last month about that incident near Area 51 involving a military aircraft. The FAA even ordered all planes away from that area above Lincoln County, not far from the secret military installation. Well, after cleaning up the site, a spokesperson for Creech Air Force Base, where they fly drones, says, quote, investigators discovered signs of tampering at the mishap location, including the presence of an inert training bomb body and an aircraft panel of unknown origin. Remember, that's after they say they cleaned this all up. Right now, the Air Force and the FBI are investigating. Meantime, the Dreamland Resort, that's a website devoted to tracking activity in and around Area 51, reports the incident was an unmanned aerial vehicle crash.
So that's the details that we've got so far, and everyone's kind of jumping to this and being like, oh my lord, this is a UFO. Well, hold your horses, because it might not be that exciting. So on September 23rd, 2025, a UAV, which is an unmanned aerial vehicle, assigned to the US Air Force's 432nd Wing based at Creech Air Force Base in Nevada, crashed in the Nevada desert approximately 12 miles east of Area 51 security perimeter and around 24 miles from the base itself. It's the 432nd Wing is known for operating drones like the MQ-9 Reaper, though the exact type of craft involved remains unspecific and with no official statements as of right now. No fatalities or injuries were reported, and it was an unmanned craft. The crash site fell within the Nevada Test and Training Range, the NTTR, adjacent to the high security airspace around Area 51 known as the Box. This location has fueled speculation due to Area 51's history of secrecy and association with advanced or classified aircraft testing. What made this even crazier is the fact that the airspace was completely shut down, so the FAA issued a temporary flight restriction, which centered around the area of the crash site itself, and then obviously there was the investigation and finding the tampering that had taken place. As of right now, the details are incredibly scarce. A lot of people are saying, oh my goodness, it's a UFO. It's not a UFO, I'm afraid, guys. It's a UAV, which was military. It was a test flight. It went down. Things went wrong. I hate to break it to you, but people are talking about it all over the internet. As you can see here, articles have been made about it. This was the area in which it went down. I believe this is the Box. I think. I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. But this is where it went down, essentially, right? And that's the crux of it, I'm afraid. So, less exciting than it being a UFO, but I don't want to lead people down the wrong path. Moving forwards from this, we've got Lou Elizondo. So someone is speaking out against Lou Elizondo. Quote, Lou told me the US government would give me a shit ton of money to keep me from selling it to China. They fuck with me. I'm tired of it. So basically, talking about anti-gravity research here. Take a little listen to this. It's very telling.
Because he was like, I'm going to bring George Knapp and blah, 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 and we'll film. But Lou said the same thing. Lou was like, oh, we're filming the second season of the TTSA show on the History Channel, and we'll come do an episode about Huntsville. Like, I want to bring Tom DeLonge and Steve Justice and Hal and blah, blah, blah people to your house. And he told me that the U.S. government would give me a shit ton of money to keep me from selling it to China. And so I called him and I'm like, can you refer me to an active U.S. Army general, please, to talk about this transaction? And he was like, radio silence. Like, I asked him to refer me to active military, and that killed the conversation. But yeah, they fuck with me. I'm tired of it.
So, long story short, right, basically, this is anti-gravity researcher Amy Eskridge, right? And she obviously works with anti-gravity stuff. She's done a lot of work on it. And basically, Lou said, don't sell it to China, or what you know to China. Keep it here. The government will pay you loads of money to, like, find out what you know and all the rest of it. And apparently when she referred to the US government and to active military personnel. Radio silence, nothing came about from it. And it kind of plays into this narrative that Lou Elizondo is this disinformation agent. Whether that's true or not, obviously, is up to interpretation. A lot of people don't like Lou. I know Vetted posted, Patrick from Vetted posted on X a couple of days ago saying, you know, in public, everyone loves Lou, but behind the scenes, no one wants to work with him. I wonder why that is. Adding in this kind of, you know, underlying kind of idea that maybe he's not the nicest guy around. What do you guys think? Let me know. But moving on from that, you may remember a couple of days ago, someone over on Reddit called Michael, right, the whistleblower or witness, came out and did an AMA, Ask Me Anything, on his basically his first-hand experiences with UAPs, and also how he created basically stuff for the DoD, and he was basically completely blacklisted to a degree. Now, a lot of people are talking about this, including Tim Phillips, who is the former Arrow director, and he spoke with Mick West, who did an interview and basically spoke about the stuff with regards to the DoD and Arrow, and whether this guy is legit or not. Well, I can tell you for a fact that this is a highly interesting conversation. Take a little listen to this.
I was frustrated by some of the claims made by witnesses to members of Congress. I know that we had people referred to us. One particular individual, we thought he was extorting us. You know, we were either going to pay him for his knowledge or his materials, or he was going to take it to a foreign country. It sounded like extortion to us, and reported it to our FBI counterparts. And by the way, we actually had at various times FBI, agents or analysts who were part of the Arrow staff. So we did work very, very closely with the FBI. So
that was some physical material that he had.
It was. And I actually went back to members of this member's staff saying they should protect the member from this individual. It wasn't fair to him to give him an audience. I am not a medical professional, but what I heard, based off common sense, I wouldn't want him around my family.
How did he even get into the position to be able to approach you with this type of thing?
Well, he was referred to us by members of this staff. It came to us.
Okay.
And we were asked to interview, and we did. And there was concern that some of the materials that he possessed could compromise actual programs of record. When I actually met with the chairman over this issue, he had asked me if I had been actually visited to the Nevada test site. And I had personal knowledge of some of the technologies that were being tested out there. And I told him, no, I haven't. And he highly recommended that I get out there, get read in and understand what was going on, because he was afraid that programs could have been compromised. So that's one reason, I went out to the Nevada test site.
Was that a helpful perspective on existing cases?
It absolutely was, to go out there to meet with the commanders, to look at the test articles, and you have a much better understanding why rational people who are not reading to the technology could actually think that this was derived or reverse engineered from an alien ET type entity.
Yeah. You mentioned once, I think, a Klingon battleship.
I think I said a death ship. Yeah, I looked at that video. It was late at night, and we had been talking for many, many hours. And, I had a little bit too much body movement there, but I was getting excited. But the technology is amazing, and it's one of the things I do want to go back and hammer on a bit is these people that report what they saw. when we go back and we see the videotapes of the test, their accuracy is just amazing.
Right.
It actually is scary as how they accurately convey what they saw to us, and we look at it and we understand what it is. We do understand the technology, and they're right. It's amazing, but it came, it was invented by us and flown by us, and we want to preserve, the security of these programs, and that's why we go through such great lengths to vet people and have such compartmentalization, and we test in such a remote place, to protect these systems as they're being developed.
Yeah. So these systems.
Interesting stuff there from obviously Tim Phillips talking about this, Michael. This basically is like a civilian contractor. Now, what was really interesting about this was this interview came out about 3 months ago over on Mick West's YouTube channel, right? So you can see it here. It came out about 3 months ago talking about this situation. It's a whole episode of like an hour and 42. So if you want to hear the rest of it, go over to Mick West's YouTube channel. You'll find it over there. But it does directly kind of coincide hand in hand with this AMA and the order of events that this Michael has put into place. Whistling Mike is his Twitter handle, of course, and it's very interesting. Now, I initially thought that this was the guy that dead dropped the Hellfire missile video to Burleson, but it wasn't. Apparently, he was dead dropped it as well as Burleson, so it wasn't him that actually dead dropped the video. Very interesting stuff. And we've got another UFO whistleblower. It is actually a week of UAP whistleblowers who was allegedly hired to communicate with aliens. Retired Air Force Sergeant Dan Sherman has just come out on the Jesse Michaels podcast to talk about some absolutely mental things that he has done for the NSA, right? Literally talking allegedly to extraterrestrial beings. Crazy stuff. Before we get into the video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe. So, this came from Jesse Michaels' official X account. He put, breaking NSA whistleblower details, highly classified systematic US government program and alien communication program. So, initially, you're like, that's a pretty nuts headline. But then when you check out the actual video title, which is, the NSA hired me to speak to aliens, in quotations, Sergeant Dan Sherman, it gets even more insane. Now, it came with a little video, right, to kind of like hype people up, and then we'll take a look at that. We'll get into who Dan Sherman is. We'll get into the things that he stated. You're not ready for this.
And I want you to mentally hum that tone. And he said that you will eventually feel a connection. The line will change. When I saw the sine wave move, I went, oh, okay, well, there's a mental disconnect there that's not supposed to be happening. That this is not possible.
Our guest today is an Air Force sergeant who worked at the highest levels on classified projects in electronics and signals intelligence for the United States government. We have thorough documentation of his military records. His service is not something you can really argue with, nor is his mental health.
This is the most nonchalant conversation I've ever had about alien telepathic communication.
In this exclusive long-form interview, retired Technical Sergeant Dan Sherman claims that while serving in the Air Force in the early 90s, he was recruited for an extremely classified program at the NSA, or National Security Agency. This program was called Project Preserve Destiny. Project Preserve Destiny's purpose? To telepathically decode alien signals for the NSA. You heard me right. Alien signals that seem to telepathically transmit descriptions of alien abductions across the United States. Alien signals that ultimately gave our very curious guest answers about the very nature of the alien presence on Earth, how these beings travel, how they conceive of time, what they think about humans, and much, much more.
What the
Dan Sherman was originally told by the Air Force captain who read him into the program that he was given this telepathic ability by the aliens themselves when they abducted Sherman's pregnant mother in the early 1960s and altered his genetics while he was a fetus in her womb. This genetic blueprint would allow him to grow into what the NSA would dub an intuitive communicator.
With the IC communication, you can feel it in your brain. You can feel, now you can't localize it. It's not a localization, but I can feel like it's in that area of my brain right there.
Whoa.
And
Sherman believes the NSA may even have tracked him since childhood into his young adulthood and military service until he was finally read into the program.
Do you think that the NSA or powers that be know that this interview is happening?
Because of the extremely sensitive nature of this NSA program and its ties to black programs, Dan tries to abstain mentioning which bases this Project Preserve Destiny was conducted at. But my researchers and I were able to locate one of these bases, and I bring it up at the end of this interview, catching Sherman a bit off guard. Not only that, but at the end of this video, we explore an independent researcher's use of the Freedom of Information Act to learn more about Project Preserve Destiny. He sent a request to the government to see all of the files on it. As you'll see, both the Air Force and NSA's responses to his request are fairly telling. The point is, the skeptics can have at it, but this case isn't going away. It's very hard to dismiss. I'd argue that Dan Sherman's story is one of the most important UFO legacy program-related accounts we have to contend with. So sit back, relax, and prepare to have your worldview crumble with this week's very courageous American alchemist, retired sergeant, intuitive alien communicator, and UFO whistleblower, Dan Sherman.
Obviously, if that's not enough to get you hyped, I don't know what will be. So Dan Sherman, he kind of briefly mentioned like his background and his service there, but in case you don't know, he's very well accredited and he's very sound up here. It may not sound it based off of what he says, but apparently he is. So in his background and his military service, he served in the period in the United States Air Force from 1982 to 1994, totaling 12 years. And he was trained as an electronic intelligence, ELINT, analysis for the National Security Agency, the NSA, a role that he claims was a cover for his true assignment, which of course was this other project, Project Preserve Destiny. Now, with regards to the allegations to the PPD, Project Preserve Destiny, Sherman asserts that he was a part of Project Preserve Destiny, a program where he was trained to intuitive communicator. That's what his job title essentially was, and this training allegedly involved learning to interface telepathically with extraterrestrials to relay information through a secure computer system to NSA handlers. Now, with regards to these ET communications, during his tenure, Sherman claims to have received over 75 messages from an extraterrestrial that he nicknamed Bones, suggesting a structured interaction where he acted as a conduit for alien communication. The project purportedly prepared for a future scenario where electronic communications might fail, necessitating alternative means of information exchange, possibly due to anticipated significant Earth changes. Then there's the public disclosure. So after retiring, Sherman published the book Above Black, Project Preserve Destiny, Insider Account of Alien Contact and Government Cover-Up in 1998. The book details his experiences with the alleged cover-up by the government. Now, Sherman has maintained a pretty low-key, straightforward narrative, emphasizing sticking to facts rather than embellishing, which he believes preserves his credibility to a degree. Now, there is obviously corroboration and skepticism. So there are FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests. Independent researcher Noah Hradex, I probably butchered that name, I do apologize. Freedom of Information Act requests have indirectly supported Sherman's claims. The US Air Force forwarded Hradex's inquiry about Project Preserve Destiny to the NSA, which they cited for national security reasons for not disclosing further information. This routing suggests the project's existence within government records, though specifics remain classified. On the other hand to this, as there always is, there is an element of skepticism. So despite military records and psychological evaluation supporting his service, skeptics demand more concrete evidence, such as genetic proof of manipulation, which Sherman has not provided at this time, which is very interesting. And his story's lack of sensationalism is noted, but the absence of verifiable scientific evidence keeps it at the realm of belief rather than fact for many. Now, interestingly as well, of course, his own testimony kind of also mentions that he can feel this implant in his brain, which, for anyone that kind of understands the brain, there's no nerves in your brain. Like, literally, someone could, like, lobotomize you and poke your brain. You wouldn't feel someone poking your brain. So the fact that he says that he can feel it in there is throwing a few people off as well, but that's just a little nitpick. Cultural impact, of course, you know, Sherman's story is part of a broader narrative about UFO lore, contributing to discussions and government secrecy, alien contact, and human extraterrestrial interaction. And there's also a lot of other stuff. But what was also very interesting was on Jesse Michaels' post over on X. He obviously kind of goes into it and he kind of outlines the key segments that they talk about. Number one being the NSA recruitment, then genetic engineering for intuitive communication. And then he goes on to obviously talk about the inside program, but alien contact obviously is going to be the bit that everyone's very keen on. So Sherman has met 2 ET beings. One's he nicknamed Bones and Spock because he was a Star Trek fan. Bones and Spock told him all about the alien presence and how UFOs fly and humanity's place in the cosmos, which is absolutely mind-boggling. So the secrecy and moral weight of the project crushed Sherman. Despite wanting to serve, he eventually used the military's don't ask, don't tell policy as a legal loophole to escape, a decision that he speaks to the intense mental cost of participating in these hidden alien programs.
And he said,
and obviously there's also the larger unfolding story. So, you know, this hints at a far deeper and coordinated system, a decades-long effort to merge biology, intelligence, and extraterrestrial contact, operating in the shadows for national security state. This, on paper, if you wrote this down and sent it to someone and said, what's your thoughts on this? They'd be like, you're literally off your rocker. But the way that Sherman speaks about this, he's so, you know, I don't know how to describe it. He's so like, yeah, this is how it is. To the point where people are like, wow, this guy, like, you know, he's saying it with such chest and so brazenly that there must be something to this. I find this really baffling. I've watched segments of the podcast. The whole thing is well over 3 hours long. I haven't managed to make my way all the way through it. But what I will find very interesting, and I want to kind of share in this episode as well, is him talking about Spock, who, of course, is one of the extraterrestrials that he has communicated with, allegedly.
Non-linear.
Abstract. Or, yeah, it was much more... I wish I had more experiences with more aliens so I could see the differences, because I only saw 2, and Spock, the first one, he was his tapestry, and again, I just say tapestry because I don't know how to explain it, but his fog, so to speak, or whatever, was very very linear.
Yeah.
It was in my mind's eye, it was very straight like this. His communications were in a straight line. Like the one area would have one piece of communication, and then it would be right here, and then it'd be right here, and then it'd be right here, and then it'd be right here. So it was very straight and
Does he
linear.
introduce himself, or you call him Spock?
Well, no. Okay, so I guess I have to explain that. The reason why I never got a name from him or anything like that, but his communications were very logical. And so my friend and I we were Star Trek fans, and I just thought it was funny just to refer to him as Spock. And I wasn't referring to him to anybody else. So the joke was lost on the world until I wrote my book. But
did you address him directly when you're sending messages back? Did you address him as Spock? Or
No. I never said that. I don't even know if he would know who Spock was.
Right.
So
We don't even do we. Maybe we don't even know it's a he. Could
yeah,
be yeah.
Well, I think I guess no, but I did sense that it was a male, male energy.
And what is Spock saying to you?
Well, it was all very, very number oriented. It wasn't until I got to my second base that I started getting the imagery type stuff. But the first was very Spock. Well, okay, so at the end of my time at the first base, I was doing a communication. I was receiving something, and the only reason that I would communicate back to him is like, can you repeat that, or can you say that again, or do that again? There was no real back and forth, but I went into, and this is the hardest thing to explain, I think. And I say plain, but it was, I wanted to ask him a question, so I was really hesitant to do that. I wanted to start asking questions, and I was trying to get up the courage to break from the formality of our communications so that I could ask a question. And I really didn't know how to do that intuitively. I didn't know what the protocol would be for that. I was receiving stuff, and I could actually convey messages back as far as feedback and stuff, but I didn't know what the formality would be to have an informal conversation or to ask something that had nothing to do with our communication.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was because I was so anxious or charged about it that I asked him a question, but then it was the weirdest thing because it went into another, I say plane, but I can't really explain. It was a different tapestry. Let's just say that way. You know, the tapestry that I keep on alluding to, it was you know how I said you can focus further away and then closer, you know, like the lens that I told you about the camera.
Yep.
This one was like a macro, like it came closer to me, and it was different. It was different than the tapestry that I keep talking about.
Now, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I absolutely understand the way that he's talking about referring and communicating with these beings, because I literally, it's lost on me. I've tried for a lot of today to get my head around it, and the only way that I can really properly describe it is it's like visuals in your head communication. Obviously that would be telepathic, but it's not like a voice comes in. It's more like a scripture, but without words. Kind of the vibe that I'm getting. What do you guys think of all this? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. While you're down there, jump together, hell out that like button and subscribe. And until next time, I'll speak to you later. Peace.